Ever since I came out, my stepfather had kept coming to my room at night and watching me sleep. Every night, I woke up to him smiling deliberately and saying, "You need to be here." I never thought I'd be typing something like this out for strangers to read, but I've been carrying it in my chest since it happened, and it feels like my brain is going to combust if I don't put it somewhere. I've read so many posts here where people say, "Please tell me I'm not overreacting," or "I need a rational explanation." And I always thought I'd be the calm one in the comments, helping them think through it. Now, I'm the one begging someone, anyone, to tell me there's a sane reason for this. Because right now, my skin is crawling just remembering it. It was just before dawn, maybe 5:45 a.m. I woke up for no reason, facing the entryway from my pull-out bed in the living room, and there they were, standing over me. Not talking, not moving, just leaning in, head tilted, eyes locked on me with this slow, deliberate smile that made every part of my body want to fold in on itself. At first, I didn't even register it as real. I thought maybe I was in one of those sleep paralysis nightmares, except I could move. And when I did, when I flinched and pulled my hood over my head like that would make me disappear, they didn't laugh, didn't say sorry, didn't mean to scare you. They just went, almost to themselves, "Oh," and "whoa." Like I was some kind of experiment reacting exactly the way they hoped. I stayed curled up until my chest stopped heaving, then bolted for the bathroom to make sure I was actually awake. Checked my phone, 6 a.m. This wasn't some fuzzy dream I'd forget in 10 minutes. This was real. When I came back out, they weren't gone. They were sitting at the kitchen table, not facing it normally, but turned sideways, chair back toward me like some kind of blockade, like they wanted me to know they could pivot and look at me anytime. They scraped the chair along the floor just enough for the sound to stick in my ears. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My voice would have cracked if I tried. Instead, I went straight back to the couch bed, texted someone I trust about what happened, and wrote every detail down before my brain could sand down the edges. You're probably thinking, okay, maybe it's a weird misunderstanding. Here's why I'm not so sure. This person isn't related to me by blood, but they've lived in my family home for years. They're in their late 40s or 50s. They've hurt every single one of us in some way. And me, they've always had a special brand of dislike for me. When I came out as trans, it was like I painted a target on myself. I left this house for 5 years because of something they did. I swore I'd never come back. But life doesn't care about vows, and when you run out of money and options, you end up back in the lion's den. The pull-out bed is the only space I have here. The living room has no doors, no barrier between me and anyone who wants to walk in. They sleep on the couch in another room. Why, I don't know, because there are other beds, but it means they're always one quiet step away from me. I've been trying to tell myself they were just up early, maybe looking for one of the cats, maybe zoning out. But I would have seen the cat. I did see the cat, later in the kitchen, drinking water. Not on the couch back, not perched somewhere between us. Just them and that smile, hanging in the dark like a shadow I couldn't shake. If this was an accident, if any parents or step-parents or whatever have ever done something like this without meaning harm, please tell me. Tell me you said sorry. Tell me you didn't just walk away and pretend it never happened. Because I'm already walking on glass here, knowing that if I tell my parent, they'll pick their spouse over me in a heartbeat. It's happened before. It could leave me on the street again. And yet, what's the alternative? Pretend I didn't just wake up into my worst nightmare. I wish I could make this simple. Here's the cause, here's the solution. But it's never been simple with him. Not 5 years ago, not now, and definitely not in the uneasy space between. People always ask, if it was so bad, why did you go back? Like homelessness is a quirky choice and not a slow erosion of your ability to feel human. I left because of him. I came back because I ran out of options. The day I returned, I carried one backpack and one duffel. The house looked the same from the outside, but inside it felt smaller, like the walls had leaned in. My parent hugged me in the doorway. He stood behind them, smiling that polite smile he uses for neighbors. "Welcome back," he said, like I was late on rent. I told myself it would be temporary. A few months to reset, find work, leave again. My rules were simple. Keep my head down, keep my stuff contained, don't give him anything to twist. The first week lulled me into hope. He was quiet, already dressed and out most mornings. I thought maybe I could survive this. But safety in that house has always been a performance, and he's always known when to let the mask slip. Years ago, before I transitioned, he loved to tell people I was difficult. It meant I wouldn't do what he wanted. The big incident that drove me out wasn't one moment but a pattern. Nitpicking, punitive chores, clothes going missing, barging in on me, and the hallway cornering where he smirked. Some of us don't get to pretend forever. My parent came home to a story where I threatened the peace of the household. That line stuck like wallpaper. Coming back meant stepping into a room where that version of events still stood. There was a spare bedroom, but it's for storage, and it's not fair to make him move his things. So, the pull-out bed in the living room. No doors, no privacy. I folded it away each morning, kept my bag under the coffee table, wore earbuds, made myself small. The first nights I learned the house's rhythms. The fridge hum changing pitch at 2 a.m., the couch cushions creaking when weight shifted, his 312 bathroom trips. I started sleeping in fragments. I'd jolt awake at every sound, a hallway light click, cat tags tapping, his slow, careful footsteps. People think paranoia is imagining things, but living with someone like him turns your senses into radar. You learn the difference between a chair scraped 3 inches and 5. I tried to rationalize. Maybe he was checking if I was breathing, I have no condition, looking for a cat, they weren't there, walking to the kitchen, then why stop? Sleepwalking, he mocks people for it. My parents' answer to, does he get up early, was, he's been having trouble sleeping. Don't make it a thing. But everything with him is a thing. By the second week, the rules shifted. He'd hover behind the couch while I read. Once he tugged my hood, too casual to call a grab, too familiar to be accidental. You jumpy? He said, smiling like it was a joke we shared. I started keeping my carving knife under a sweater by the couch. It wasn't a threat. It was the only lock I had in a house without doors. The cats were the only neutral residents. They didn't care about human politics. Their routines, one on the window ledge at sunset, another head-butting my knee at 11, became the only constants. On the morning of the smile, the window cat wasn't there. Some tiny gear in the house's machine had slipped. After I posted about it, I hoped that was the peak. But he got careful. The whispering at the table, I missed you, you need to be here, made my skin crawl. If it was genuine, why whisper? Why keep it private from the one person who would welcome that supposed change? That's when I realized this was a new phase. Before, his hostility was open. Now it was wrapped in plausible deniability. The smile could pass for friendly. Proximity was allowed, no doors to cross. Words could mean 2 things depending on the angle, and he always chose angles. Being trans in a house that prefers the old, you means every interaction is a negotiation. I printed my name on a mug. When it vanished, I labeled another. If my parents stumbled over my pronouns, I moved on. But with him, my name became a test. I like the old one better, he'd say, grin like a pin. It's not a suggestion, it's a reminder I'm optional. My parents' instinct is to avoid conflict. When I talk about feeling unsafe, they hear an unsolvable problem. When he says, we're doing our best here, they hear resolution. People want to believe the house isn't haunted. I want to believe it too. So I got practical. Mapped jobs by bus route, took the worst shifts, hid cash in a sock, kept my documents in my backpack, learned which floorboards don't creak. The day after the whispering, he started using my name more. Not loud, soft, almost intimate. My name, can you hand me that? My name, I was thinking, watching my reactions like a scientist observing an insect. If I flinched, he filed it away. If I didn't, he pushed. My siblings move around him like furniture you can bruise yourself on. We don't talk about it directly, but sometimes our eyes meet over the sink and the question is there. You saw that too, right? People say, get evidence. I've thought about recording him at night. But he's skilled at staying just shy of recordable. The smile won't translate, the tone won't carry, and if I did catch something, my parent might still side with him. Posting it online could help or backfire. I calculate constantly how long I can keep my job before exhaustion makes me sloppy, how long my back can handle the pullout, how many more breakfasts I can endure with him watching from the corner of my eye. The morning of the smile wasn't an isolated scare. It was a broadcast. The house reminding me who stands and who curls up. I can't leave today. I'm 3 paychecks from a deposit, 2 crises from a setback, 1 you're overreacting from a burned bridge. So tonight I'll fold the pull-out quietly, wedge my backpack between my legs, slide the knife under the sweater. I'll rehearse my path to the door. I'll listen for the scrape of the chair, the slipper slap of feet, the inhale before a fake kindness. And I'll keep writing, because people like him survive on fog. I'm building a map. It didn't stop. That's the thing I keep replaying in my head. I thought maybe after the whispering at the table, after I left the room like the air was on fire, he'd back off. Pretend nothing happened. Go back to the kind of cold silence I could handle, because at least it was predictable. But if anything, it felt like he'd found some new lever to pull. Something about that moment gave him confirmation of what, I don't know, but whatever it was, he liked it. The shift was subtle at first, just these little adjustments to his routine. He started showing up in rooms a few minutes after I entered them, like he'd been waiting for the sound of my footsteps. I'd be pouring coffee and suddenly he'd be leaning in the kitchen doorway, not saying anything, not doing anything, just there. If I left to get a glass of water in the middle of the night, there he'd be in the hallway, like he just happened to be awake too. I told myself to track it, to write it down the same way I'd been writing down every detail since the first morning. But you can't capture the exact way it feels in your body when someone has mapped your movements like clockwork and decided to orbit you. It's a pressure you can't scrub off. My parents stayed oblivious, or maybe they didn't want to see it. They've always been like that, choosing the narrative that lets them sleep. To them, 2 people being in the same room is just coincidence. To me, it's a repetition so tight it feels rehearsed. I started timing my movements, changing my patterns to see if it would break the cycle. If I lingered in the bathroom a few extra minutes, he'd still be waiting somewhere I had to pass. If I stayed in my room, the pull-out couch really, and pretended to sleep, sometimes I'd hear him pacing on the far side of the living room. Once, I woke to the sound of the chair scraping again. Slow, deliberate. I didn't look. I stayed curled up under the blanket with my phone recording audio under the pillow. When I checked the file later, all I got was that scraping noise, then silence. It could be anything, right? A chair shifting on its own. A cat brushing against it. That's what makes this so impossible to prove. It's all built to be dismissed. He knows it too. That's the part that drives me insane. He knows exactly where the line is between normal and too much, and he tiptoes right up to it without crossing in a way anyone else would notice. The next escalation was the objects. Things I'd leave out, my mug, my book, a pen, would be moved half an inch, turned a different way, like a tiny fingerprint on my day, to remind me he'd been close enough to touch them. I'd sit down to write and find the chair angled differently. I'd wake up and my backpack would be zipped when I'd left it open. Always little things, so small I could almost convince myself I'd done it. Except I know my own habits. I'm careful about my space. In a house without doors, control over your objects is the last boundary you have. He started pairing it with comments. "Oh, you moved this?" he'd say in a tone like he was genuinely curious. "Thought it was somewhere else earlier." Or, "That your mug? I thought I saw it in the kitchen this morning." Always small, always with that casual lilt that makes you feel crazy for hearing the threat in it. My siblings didn't say much, but I could see it in how they moved. The one who still talked to me started spending more time in their room, even eating meals in there when they could. The youngest would vanish outside for hours, claiming they were walking the dogs, even when the dogs were asleep on the couch. We all had our ways of dodging him. The problem is you can't dodge someone who has made your presence their project. The morning it broke me wasn't loud or dramatic. I was sitting at the table eating toast, scrolling through my phone, and he sat down across from me. Not next to me, not diagonally, directly across. It was the kind of seating choice people make when they want to talk. I didn't look up, he didn't speak right away. Instead, he leaned forward on his elbows and just watched me. That smile again. I took a bite of toast. He stayed there, smiling, eyes fixed. Finally, he said my name, so soft it barely carried over the hum of the fridge. "You look tired." Not a question, not a sympathetic observation, more like a statement of ownership. I muttered something about work. He nodded slowly, still smiling, and said, "You should rest. You need to be here." My chest locked. I didn't answer. I got up, put my plate in the sink, and went to the bathroom, shutting the door even though it barely muffled anything. I sat on the edge of the tub, staring at the floor tiles, trying to slow my breathing. That "you need to be here" lodged itself in my skull like a splinter. Why say that? Why in that tone, with that look? Why keep threading it into moments when no one else can hear? It's not the kind of thing you can bring to my parent. They'd hear it and think it was concern, even sweetness. "He's just trying to make you feel welcome," they'd say, and then I'd be the ungrateful one again. That's the trap. He builds moments no one else can validate. The days started blending after that. Every room felt smaller. Every sound felt intentional. I stopped wearing my earbuds, not because I didn't need the distraction, but because I couldn't risk not hearing him approach. I ate faster, took showers at odd hours, kept my phone in my pocket, even in the house. I started keeping the knife on the couch during the day, covered by a blanket. My friend told me I should leave, even if it meant sleeping in my car, but I don't have a car. The bus system here barely runs past midnight. The shelters are full. I'm not choosing to stay because I think it's safe. I'm choosing it because the alternatives aren't. And he knows that. He can smell the trap I'm in. That's why he's escalating now, not before. I think about that a lot. That predators wait until their prey has no exit. The closest I've come to confronting him was last week. I'd just gotten home from a late shift, and the house was quiet except for the TV murmuring in the other room. I went to the kitchen for water, and there he was, standing by the sink in the dark. No glass, no food, just standing. He didn't move when I entered, didn't speak, just turned his head slowly toward me and smiled. Not big, not cartoon villain, just enough to make my scalp prickle. I didn't say anything. I poured the water, drank it, put the glass in the sink, and walked out. My hands were shaking so hard I could hear the ice in my veins. In the morning, my mug was in the wrong place again. The thing I hate most isn't the fear, it's the knowing he wants me to feel it. That's the currency here. It's not about liking me or hating me. It's about holding the thread of my nerves and tugging it whenever he wants to feel the vibration. He's playing with my boundaries like they're guitar strings. My parent keeps talking about after the holidays as a milestone, like things will get easier then. They don't realize I'm marking time differently. 3 weeks to payday, 2 to rent enough, 1 unexpected expense away from disaster. The cats are still my metronome. When the window cat stops coming to her spot, I know something's shifted in the house. When the headbutt cat curls up by my feet, I know I've been sitting too still for too long. They don't know it, but they're the only things here that make me feel like a person instead of a target. I've thought about disappearing without a word, packing my bag while everyone's asleep, slipping out before dawn. But I've seen what happens to the people who leave like that. They become stories told in the kitchen, stripped down to punchlines that make the teller look like the victim. "They couldn't handle it here," he'd say, shaking his head. "We tried our best." I don't want to be a ghost in my own story. I want to leave with the truth intact. But truth is slippery here. It gets warped in the retelling, bent until it fits the frame of misunderstanding. Every day I stay, I risk becoming part of that script. Still, every day I stay is another day closer to the door. I've stopped waiting for apologies. He's not going to say sorry. He's not going to explain the smile or the whisper. And even if he did, it would be wrapped in so many layers of plausible deniability that it wouldn't matter. What I'm waiting for now is the moment when the map I've been building in my head connects to a real street outside, a route that doesn't loop back to the pull-out couch. Until then, it's survival math. How many exits? How many witnesses? How much money? How little sleep before my judgment blurs? I know it sounds obsessive, but obsession is what keeps me sharp. I can't afford to go dull here. He's counting on it, on me getting tired enough to slip, to forget to lock my bag, to miss the sound of the chair scraping behind me. That's when people like him make their move. I'm not going to give him that. I'm going to keep the knife close, the map sharper, the records detailed. Because the day I do leave, I want to carry more than just my bag. I want to carry the proof, even if no one else will look at it. I want to walk out, knowing I didn't let him turn me into the kind of shadow he feeds on. I want the door to close behind me without the sound of his smile following through the crack. The breaking point didn't come in a storm. It came in that quiet, waiting way. Bad things sometimes arrive, like the house had been holding its breath until I walked into the wrong place at the wrong time. I'd been trying to stay invisible for weeks, taking my showers at odd hours, eating when the kitchen was empty, slipping between rooms like a draft. But that night, I slipped. I came home from my shift late, past midnight, damp with rain and smelling like fryer oil. And all I wanted was to heat soup, eat it half asleep, and collapse on the pullout. The lights in the living room were off. The TV was silent. It felt like the house was asleep. I padded into the kitchen, bare feet on cold tile, and reached for a bowl. That's when I heard it, the sound of something sliding on the counter behind me. I turned. He was standing there, not 3 feet away, in the shadow between the hallway and kitchen, holding my mug. The one with my name on it. The one I'd put away that morning. He didn't say anything at first, just tilted his head, smile curling up like smoke. My brain went to static. I didn't move, didn't speak. I could feel my own pulse thudding in my fingertips. Finally, he set the mug down with this deliberate care, like he was placing something fragile, and said, "You're always up so late." Not a question, just a statement, weighted in a way I couldn't place. My mouth was dry, but I made myself say, "Work." He nodded, slow, as if I'd given the answer he was hoping for. "Then we should talk more." The way he said it, soft, almost coaxing, made my skin prickle. He stepped back into the hallway, still watching me, until the dark swallowed him. I didn't eat that night. I went straight to the couch, locked my backpack to the leg with a bike chain, and kept the knife in my hand until dawn. The next morning, I told myself I'd misread it, that it was just awkward timing, bad nerves. But that evening, it escalated. My siblings were in the backyard, my parent upstairs. I was in the living room reading when I heard the soft scrape of the chair, the same sound from that first morning. I froze. The scrape came again, closer, and then his voice, "You don't have to be afraid here." My stomach dropped. I didn't turn around. I could feel him behind me, that warm presence at the edge of my space. "I'm glad you came back," he said. The words were gentle, but the way he said them made it feel like a verdict. I stood up without looking at him and walked straight to the bathroom. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely close the door. That was when I realized this wasn't about misunderstandings or clumsy attempts at connection. This was about control. About making me carry his words like they were mine. Something in me snapped. I pulled my phone from my pocket, hit record, and waited. I wanted proof, any proof, that I wasn't inventing this. I didn't have to wait long. The doorknob rattled once, lightly, like someone checking if it would open. Then his voice, muffled but clear, "We'll talk later." I sat on the floor, knees against my chest, until I heard him walk away. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it over my breathing. When I played the recording back, the words were there, tinny but unmistakable. Not enough for police, not enough for my parent to finally say, "You're right," but enough for me. Enough to remind myself I wasn't losing my mind. That night, I messaged a friend with the recording. "Hold on to this," I wrote. "If anything happens, you know where to start." Sending it felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. For the first time since I came back, I wasn't just reacting, I was preparing. Over the next days, I started making small, careful moves. I moved some cash out of the house. I packed a bag and hid it under the couch cushions. I made copies of my documents and left them with a coworker. I memorized bus routes I'd never taken before. The house still moved at its usual pace, my parent humming in the kitchen, my siblings drifting between rooms. But under it all, I could feel the shift. He was quieter, watching more. The kind of quiet that comes before a door closes and locks. I didn't sleep much. I lay there at night, knife on my chest, phone recording in case I heard the scrape again. The cats visited me like sentries, curling at my feet, blinking at the dark. And every time I thought I couldn't take another day, I'd replay that recording, not to scare myself, but to remember. This is real. This is happening. You're not making it up. You have a map out of here. The breaking point wasn't one moment, it was all of them layered until the weight was too much to carry quietly. I don't know when I'm leaving yet, but I know that when I do, it won't be in the middle of the night with nothing but fear in my bag. I'll leave with the map, the proof, the cash, and the kind of silence that doesn't belong to him anymore. I'm still here. That's the part that makes my skin itch, knowing the story isn't over because I'm still in it. I'm moving like a shadow in my own life, working shifts, counting cash, watching the days pile toward the line I've drawn in my head. Every step is deliberate now. Every drawer I open, every footstep I take, every glance over my shoulder is part of the exit plan. He doesn't know I've been packing in pieces, rolling socks into a grocery bag under the couch cushion, tucking my charger into the lining of my backpack, slipping my ID into my wallet the second I get home so it's never out of reach. My parent still talks about next month like it's a season we're all waiting for. Some warm future where everything smooths out. I let them talk. It's easier than explaining that my countdown is running on a different clock entirely. He's been quieter lately, and that's worse. Quiet means calculation. Quiet means the next move is being rehearsed somewhere I can't see it. Sometimes I catch him looking at me across the room. No smile now, just a steady, flat stare, like he's trying to read what page I'm on. I give him nothing back. I've learned that stillness is a weapon too. The cats are my only witnesses. They still keep their routines, unbothered by the currents under the floor. When the window cat jumps up to her ledge, I feel a flicker of something almost like relief. When the headbutt cat curls by my feet, I think one day soon, you won't have to guard me anymore. The recording is still on my phone, still backed up to my friend. I don't play it much now. I don't need to. The sound of his voice outside the bathroom door is etched into my memory, as permanent as the scrape of the chair, the whisper at the table, the smile in the dark. I don't know if he realizes I'm leaving. Maybe he suspects. Maybe he thinks I'm too trapped to risk it. Maybe he's right, until the moment he's wrong. I'm not telling anyone when I go. Not my parent, not my siblings, not even the friend holding the file. When the day comes, I'll fold the pull-out one last time, leave the sweater draped just so over the knife, and walk out with my bag like I'm running an errand. No door slamming, no dramatic scene, just gone. I imagine that moment sometimes, stepping onto the street and feeling the air shift, realizing that for the first time in years, no one is standing behind me, waiting for me to turn. That's the picture I'm holding on to. Not his face, not this house, not the sound of the scrape, just the door closing, and the silence on the other side belonging entirely to me.